endlessly. Jazakallah.
Okay, right.
So you're talking about the emphasis on the Qur'an, but could you give us some practical steps on building that relationship with the Qur'an and allowing us to motivate, not only motivate, but to practically learn the Qur'an and reflect upon it and do way more than we currently do?
That's what the whole talk was about.
No, I mean as in any
okay, practical. How practical do you want the...
So where would you like to start if one knowledge?
You just asked a completely different question. Okay, Quran obviously is something which benefits in different ways. So one of the ways is you understand how it benefits you, how it's relevant to you. So then if you appreciate that, then you'll be able to sacrifice. One of the main ways is everything that we just went through. Essentially, if you looked at everything that we went through from beginning to end, and you looked at what it is that's come to us, how it is that we meant to approach what's come to us. Now, on a practical level, on a daily basis, firstly, if you really want to be practical, is that you got to learn to read in Arabic. That's the first thing that you got to do. And then once you've learned to read it, you got to do that regularly on a daily basis. If you want a relationship with the Quran, you got to be able to, you got to give it some time on a daily basis. So that means reading it every day for at least a few minutes, at least one page as a minimum. Obviously as much as we can do, but it's got to be daily for a short amount of time. That's the reading part, which we spent a little while, and we went through the virtues of reading and why we should read. And then as well as that, then understanding it, you've got to give some time to that as well. But remember, the first thing has to be reading. If you can't read fluently, then there's no point moving on to understanding. And then once a person's learned to read, you have to try understanding it. So now when we're in Salah as well, then we try and contemplate over what Surah Fatiha is about. So we start with Surah Fatiha and the last 10 surah, and the surah which are usually read in Salah, and then we try and understand them. And then every time we're in Salah, we listen carefully rather than daydreaming about everything else, and that helps as well. So on a daily basis, 5 times we'll have an opportunity to contemplate over some part of the Qur'an. And if we study Surah Fatiha enough, just that first surah, that'll be enough for us to completely change the way we think. Because how many times on a day will we recite Surah Fatiha? 20, 30 times. So now when we recite this, if every time you actually think about what it is that you're saying to Allah, it's a conversation. If the Qur'an was the kalam of Allah, then Surah Fatiha is a dictation of that kalam. So you directly say what Allah tells you to say, and then Allah replies. And then even in the hadith about Surah Fatiha. So we focus on what Allah focuses on. The Surah Fatiha is the only surah, the virtue which is mentioned in the Qur'an. Sab'ul Mathani, the 7 highly praised verses. Surah Fatiha is mentioned in the Qur'an. So it is the most amazing surah in the Qur'an. Nobody really debates that. It's the surah we read all the time. It's the surah which, the first full surah to be revealed as well was Surah Fatiha. So now it's something which, because we're instructed to read it so much, that indicates on the amount of benefit that's behind that. And then once we study Surah Fatiha properly, now we've got a chance on a daily basis. We're going to be reading it so many times anyway. So now we actually appreciate the meaning of it, and we take different meanings every time we recite it. So that's a very simple place to start. So obviously that's for somebody who knows nothing. So you learn to read Arabic, and you develop that skill. And obviously if you don't know, and once you've done that, you start with some part of the Quran, obviously, understanding, and sensibly, logically, you'll start with Surah Fatiha. Mafhum?
No. I was going to ask...
it's got a question. Yeah.
Brother, please can you tell us about the story of Uthman? I think Uthman ibn Affan, that he destroyed some copies of the Quran before completing the collection of the Quran into a written.
So Jama' an-nas ala harfin wahid. So this is his kamal. We describe it. This is his achievement. Many a time when you're talking about the biography of Uthman radiallahu anh, you'll describe this as one of his achievements. So at the time, this is a long answer, man. So when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, as we know, the Qur'an was not collected. It wasn't together. It was in different parts. So now, because we touched on tawatur and the fact that all the Sahaba agreed, so then all of the Sahaba came together to agree on what is the Qur'an. And as we know, there was different ways which recited. Now the Prophet ﷺ, as we know, deen is meant to be easy. No, it is easy. So because deen is easy, the Prophet ﷺ allowed for different parts to read it in different qira'at. Yeah, qira'at means you read it in different, using different letters in different places. So when the Prophet ﷺ allowed this, then people used to write this down in their own form so that they could use it. Now when Uthman radiallahu anhu was Khalifa, you know when he was Khalifa, isn't it? So you had Prophet ﷺ passes away, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was there for 2 years, Umar radiallahu anhu was there for 10 years. So 12 years after the death of Rasulullah, Uthman radiallahu anhu comes. And in this period, he gets everybody onto one copy of the Qur'an. Now what that means is, when we look at our Musahif, they're all the same. The way that they're written is the same. Yeah. Now what that means is that nowadays, as we know, there's 7 qira'at which are accepted, mutawatira. Yeah, the 7 which are passed down with lots of people in each generation. Now those 7 ways to read. Now if you open any Uthmani script, we call it the Uthmani script. If you open it, you can read based on that script which was collected by Uthman radiallahu anh. You can read according to all 7 of the qira'at. Does that make sense? Now that's one of the things which he achieved, that everybody came and agreed that this is the one Musaf which is happy. Now obviously that's very important, so we all have one Musaf to go back to, and that was something which was agreed upon by all of the Sahaba. So that was the main thing which he achieved. So before that there was different qira'at, and therefore people wrote it in different ways, and this is something which he got rid of. Now burning it, that was important because it was causing friction. So now if somebody was in another part of the world and they came and travelled, and then they came and they said, oh, you're reading a different Qur'an, so this is something which obviously caused problems. So now to unite everyone onto one Qur'an, now firstly obviously it required a big consultation with all of the Sahaba. It wasn't just something he done by himself. So this is something very important, because the authenticity has to be preserved. You can't just change it to whatever you think is right. So consulting all of the Sahaba, and this decision was made, and then to agree on one. And this was mainly to avoid fitna in the future, to avoid corruption coming into the deen and causing differences within the ummah. That was the main reason that happened.
Was the person who compiled it called Hashim? What was the Sahaba's name that compiled it?
So the Khalifa Uthman radiallahu anhu.
But did any delegate to a Sahaba in order to bring the whole compilation?
So yes, there's different people who got different responsibility. Obviously he didn't do it by himself. So there were different people who collected it from different places. So then it was basically the command was given, everybody who's got any kind of Musaf, they bring it to the Khalifa. And when the Khalifa says something, you do it. So everyone done it. And then everyone brought it. And then, yes.
My question is a bit off topic.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we need to change the topic.
About heard in the hereafter how much you like yourself sort of now, your worldly self, how much of that would be retained?
As in your body? Physically?
As in your mind and memories?
That's a good question. Most people, so obviously as Islam we believe that in the soul and in the body. So all we believe is that in the hereafter, when you're resurrected, you'll be resurrected with the same mind and the same body. After entering Jannah, paradise, then we also believe that your body will be strengthened and made better and improved in different ways, and some say made bigger as well. But overall, the belief that we have is that generally the Muslim soul and the mind is the same as they had in the world, as in we'd recognize people from the world. So if you had a friend in the world, you'd recognize them. You'd be married to the wife that you had in the world. So it's things like this. So very often there's a lot of similarities, but there's obviously you'll be purified in different ways as well. So it's a difficult question, to be honest, but I hope that answers it.
I was going to ask, as the month of Ramadan is around the corner, what are some preparations you can make?
You ask the most generic questions ever. Ramadan preparations. Let's talk about Qur'an. Qur'an's very important in Ramadan. Preparation is taking it seriously, innit? That you prepare for anything else. So if you have an exam, you prepare for the exam before the exam comes. The way you prepare for Ramadan is actually making. Most of us don't prepare. It's very obvious. Most of us don't prepare at all, ever. Every year, even though we have like 4 bayans, 4 lectures, 4 khutbahs of Jummah will be all about preparing for Ramadan, but nobody ever actually does it. So one of the main ways is to fast and practice fasting, which is Sha'ban. The Prophet ﷺ used to fast a lot, to the extent that his wife used to describe him as like he's never gonna. It's almost as if he fasts for the whole of Sha'ban. That's how much he fasts in Sha'ban. We're in Rajab now, so there's a few days left. But also the Qur'an. I mean, some people that are in the masjid, they're studying Qur'an, they've got this intention that they want to try and, improve their fluency, so that when Ramadan comes, that's one person who I'd rate as somebody who's preparing for Ramadan, mashallah. So generally you develop yourself so that you have some kind of timetable, and if you practice fasting, it helps you develop for that timetable. The Ramadan has a certain timetable for everyone. So if you practice fasting, your food timetable has been sorted out a bit, and then when it comes, so that when Ramadan comes, you'll actually be used to that timetable and that kind of lifestyle. So that way you know how you can organize yourself. Obviously, it depends on what kind of occupation you have. As a student, it's a bit easier, isn't it? Especially if you've got holidays.
That's one more question before I have to go.
Okay, yes.
So when you sleep, there's the dua before you sleep and after you wake up. So sleep is a type of death in a way. So where do dreams come from, or what are they then?
Depends. Most dreams, from a Muslim perspective, we'd believe are just your thoughts, just like, But we also believe that shaitan has an effect on your dreams. So that's why when you have a bad dream and you wake up, you would seek refuge from shaitan if you had a nightmare. So any bad dream or evil dream, we'd believe that would be from shaitan. And good dreams, we do believe can be interpreted. So if it's up to the person who has the dream to decide you can probably decide for yourself. You have good dreams which mean something, and they feel like they've got some meaning behind it. You've got nightmares, so the nightmares we believe are from shaitan and evil dreams, or dreams where you're doing something wrong. That would be classified as a nightmare. And then there's dreams which are just your thoughts, which have no relevance or no relation to society, to reality. They're just your thoughts. And then there's the third type, which is where you feel there's some kind of meaningful reason behind what happened in your dream. You see some kind of thing. And those are the dreams. If you want, you can get them interpreted by a dream interpreter, and then tell you kind of what it means.
So you could still be thinking even though you were also dead in a way?
The death is not real. It's kind of a cut-off. It's the equivalent of death. It's not literal. That understanding wouldn't be literal. So of course you'd think and you'd have dreams. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay. Bas?
Yep.
Okay.